Hi, everyone. I am Tiffany M. French. Welcome to Home Buying 101. By the end of this webinar, you're going to know exactly what to expect as you prepare to begin the life you've wished for in the home of your dreams. For those of you that don't already know me, I've been a licensed realtor for 10 years, and I specialize in residential real estate in both New York and Connecticut. I have both a certified buyer representative and an at-home with diversity designation. I'm a New Yorker at heart, but now I live in Connecticut with my husband and bonus son, and I love to read and jump double dutch. And before the pandemic, I really enjoyed traveling with friends and attending concerts. I can't go a day without coffee, and I love all things rose gold, purple, and vintage stylish. I am licensed with two companies, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, New England Properties, that's a mouthful, in Connecticut, and in New York, the company I work for is Clark Realty. In 2020, I was blessed to do about $8 million in sales despite the pandemic, thanks to wonderful clients and their referrals who trusted me to guide them through the process during an already tenuous time. In the Connecticut portion of my business, my clients pushed me into the top 16% of sales agents in my company for 2020, earning me a National Honor Society award. I like to say I've been in real estate since I was 9 years old because that's when my mom began her real estate career. I've been showing homes with her ever since. And if you're searching for a home in New York, you might get to meet her because we still work together as a mother-daughter duo. It's just official now. She's the Clark in Clark Realty. I believe real estate and home ownership are key components in community building and generational legacies. Real estate property can be passed down through one's family while consistently building equity. So today we are going to cover a lot, but do not feel like you have to memorize it all. At the end, I'm going to let you know how you can continue to communicate with me, and I'll be able to answer your questions or further explain anything you didn't quite get. However, before we get started, if you have your cell phone out, you're scrolling through social media or something else, I'm going to ask you to close it down for a little while because I need your attention. We're talking about the biggest purchase you've ever made, so we should focus. During our session, I'm going to give a ton of industry information and I'll use real estate terms to help you get familiar with them. But if you're distracted, none of this is going to make sense to you or help. When the time comes to purchase your home, I want you actively participating in the process so that you feel confident and in control. After today, you will have a baseline knowledge so you know when things are going right or if we need to course correct. For that reason, I encourage you to pay attention and take notes if you need to. Okay, let's get started. So many people say to me, Tiffany, I'm going to call you as soon as I get a new job, my credit up where I think it should be, when I pay down my student loans, or this thing or another taken care of. Usually, many of the items they name, I know probably don't need to be done or can be overcome fairly quickly during the buying process once you actually get started. Over the last decade, I've helped probably hundreds of people buy, sell, or rent a home. Every time I think I've seen and heard it all, I still get surprised. One time it involved a Rottweiler puppy and my buyer client that refused to leave him at home and the entire contents of my purse. And just the other day, the surprise was a not so friendly pet alligator. There are a lot of animals in real estate. These are the unlikely scenarios, but there are several more common hiccups that can occur during the process. It's my job to help you navigate them. On screen, you'll see a couple of examples that I've come across. Maybe you started the process to buy, but the deal fell through. The sellers did not accept your offer. The home did not pass inspection, appraisal issues, title issues, finding the right insurance, sourcing a down payment and closing costs, or major life issues because they can completely alter the course of your home buying experience. Who here knows what I'm talking about? Type in the comments the things you're worried might keep you from getting a home. You don't have to get too personal, but I'm sure others on the live can relate. So let's see if some of those fears will be addressed today. Believe it or not, right now is an amazing time to get into the real estate market. The market is strong, we have historically low interest rates, and why rent when you can start to build equity at the same price point or maybe even lower? People often focus on what they don't know and let that keep them from moving forward. Today, I'm going to teach you the major components of the home buying process, and you can begin the life you've wished for in your next home. I want you to leave here today knowing how to get started in the home buying process, how your credit is determined and what your FICO score means, the basics of home financing, and gain confidence in your numbers, the most common home buying milestones, and how to get into the home of your dreams. So what do all homeowners have in common? They all made it through the process. If they can, so can you. As long as you have the basics in place like secure income, fair credit, and patience, you could be closer to home than you think. I've been at this for 10 years and I've almost seen it all. With a solid plan, patience, and open communication, you'll be kicking up your feet in no time. If you're here today, you're here right on time. You're not thinking about it too soon or too late. Just because so-and-so said the real estate boom is almost over or whatever they said, things happen when they're supposed to, and what is for you is for you. Let me show you. Thankfully, today you've ended up here with me and I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to help you find that home you've been dreaming of, and while everyone makes concessions in the home buying process, it's not the same thing as compromising. I'm going to give you the information you need to feel confident in the process so you can make informed decisions and ultimately do what's right for you and your family. I'm just the guide with the keys. I said we're going to talk about the components of the home buying process, so let's get to it. These components are often the big pieces that people usually get wrong or by overthinking or following outdated information. These are the things I've learned after too many transactions to count, including some stressful, last-minute, very costly mishaps. Let me save you some of that stress so we can go into this year drama-free. There are three main parts to this home buying webinar. One is the credit basics and FICO score. Number two is home financing basics. Number three, the home buying milestones. Part three is where I'll share the bulk of what I want to impart to you today. But first, let's state the obvious so you know I'm willing to give you the good with the cost, because there's no bad with home ownership. All things cost something, and if you want to live your dream, you already know there will be a cost. Those are just the baseline facts. The benefits of home ownership should go without saying, but I'll highlight them here for the record. You'll be able to build equity, stability, you'll have control over your own space, and there's some tax advantages, to name a few. So component number one, get to know your credit basics and FICO score. You may not remember your mom's phone number, but you should know your FICO and credit numbers. Your FICO is a 3-digit number that represents your credit history. It takes into consideration your payment history, the amounts owed, your credit mix, which is the different types of credit lines that you have, length of credit history, new credit, and inquiries. Unless your grandmother left you a trunk full of cash, you'll probably need a mortgage loan. And to get a loan, you need credit. Your FICO score will affect your loan approval, the loan product or program that is offered to you, whether FHA or conventional, your interest rate, and the cost of monthly mortgage insurance if applicable. So yes, your credit and FICO score matter. This is where communication is important. Don't try to hide information from your realtor or your mortgage broker. Make sure you're upfront with how you're sourcing any money you'll be using for down payment and closing costs. No secret mattress money. In the end, the home buying process reveals everything. So it's helpful if you're honest and upfront and allow your team to show you the smoothest path. Let me tell you what happened to me when I first decided that I wanted to purchase a home. I was interested in a small co-op apartment. I was working in real estate for about 2 years at that point, so I had the income to show. When I went to get my pre-approval, my credit was too low. We'll talk more about pre-approvals, but this is what gives you a preliminary idea of what a bank would be willing to lend you. I actually did not have enough credit. I thought I would easily get this small mortgage because at the time I didn't have any credit cards and I paid my rent and all of my bills on time. It didn't occur to me that not having revolving credit would actually be a problem. But thinking about it now, it's like, of course, Tiffany, I lost out on that co-op, but immediately opened a few credit cards, developed good habits with them, and about a year later, I was approved for about twice as much as I had originally hoped for. So let's recap to be sure you understood. Your FICO score impacts you in a couple of ways. It impacts your loan approval, what type of programs you might be eligible for, your interest rate, and if PMI is required. That's private mortgage insurance, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. Moving on to component 2. Figuring out your home financing option is a major factor in getting your home. You will absolutely need a mortgage lender because that's not my thing, but I know a few really good ones and can point you in the right direction. In the meantime, here are some of the basics to get you started. First, you'll need a mortgage lender to begin the pre-approval process. A pre-approval will estimate what your buying power is. Your lender will ask you key questions to begin what is called a pre-approval or pre-qualification. They will likely ask you for documentation of your income, check your credit, and your income taxes for the past 2 years. A good lender will actually run your credit and ask to see those documents upfront in order to issue your pre-approval. This is what tells us how much a lender will be willing to give you and what your monthly payments on that loan would be. Some of the numbers they use, like property taxes and home insurance, will be well-estimated placeholders based on where you've told them you want to purchase until you actually identify the property. She or he should explain the anatomy of your payment because there are several components that make up what most generally referred to as your mortgage. Your lender will also explain the several different types of mortgages to choose from. You may not qualify for all of them, but it's helpful to be familiar with the most common types and their requirements. Your monthly mortgage payment amount is made up of several individual components, which include your principal, which is the amount you borrowed, your interest payments, the property taxes, which will be the annual amount divided by 12. Some people choose to pay their sum directly to their municipality themselves instead of lumping it into their mortgage, your homeowner's insurance, and private mortgage insurance if applicable. PMI is usually required when you have a down payment amount that's less than 20%. Many types of mortgages allow you to omit this once you've paid your total loan amount down to 80%, therefore lowering your total monthly payment. Next, there are several different types of mortgages. Conventional, which is not backed by the federal government. If your credit is in good condition, you can get a conventional loan and put as little as 3% down. An FHA loan is commonly known as a first-time homebuyer loan, but really stands for Federal Housing Administration. There are several different types of FHA loans. Some of them are specific to individual states, like in Connecticut, there's CHFA. A lender will explain which one they feel fits you best. Generally, FHA loans require 3.5% down. There are VA loans for veterans, USDA loans, jumbo, and renovation loans. Not all of these are going to apply to you. The most common are probably the first 3. Your lender will explain different mortgage products to choose from. You won't qualify for all of them, but it's helpful to be familiar with the most common types and their requirements so that when you're presented with the option, you can make an educated decision. But it all begins with a pre-approval. Another quick story time. I had some friends who had some thoughts about possibly maybe wanting to buy a house sometime in the future. They were projecting anywhere from 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half before they started looking at homes. But they were curious about the process and wanted to prepare. We did a quick 20-minute buyer consultation so they could ask me how they should be getting ready. During our conversation, we were able to determine they should probably go ahead and talk to a lender and have their credit and income evaluated to see where they stood financially. If there were some items on their credit or they needed to show more income, like having both partners on the loan, or if they could do it with just one, they could work on that while continuing to save and prepare. Remember the list of all the things people want to get in order first that I mentioned earlier? That was pretty much our initial conversation. They actually enacted their discovery mission right away. They had their pre-approval within just a few days. Then they texted me a link to a home in their neighborhood that just came back on the market. I was able to look it up and give them some more information that they couldn't see on their app. They still maintained that they weren't ready to buy yet, but just wanted to check it out in person, just to see what actually looking would feel like. Don't you know they made an offer that day, all because they were already prepared with that pre-approval for whenever the right time struck. With that pre-approval, they were able to gain the confidence that they were in fact already ready. But buying a house just seems like such a big thing that many people just never really feel fully sure they're positioned properly to tackle. But you can do it. You just need to be prepared with the right tools. And to recap, your realtor will connect you with a great mortgage broker who will explain the cost details to you. Or you can identify your own lender. Either way, we will be working together in tandem to get you into your home. The mortgage broker will help you figure out how much you can afford, and they will explain what types of programs you will and will not qualify for. Finally, you might have to pay extra for PMI, but that doesn't have to last forever. Component 3, the milestones of the home buying process. There are many, many, many steps, but you're never alone when you have a dream team. This is the big part with the most steps and requires the most active participation from you, the buyer. So listen closely and take notes. Don't worry, a great agent will walk you through these steps again when you're ready to begin your search. Hopefully that realtor is me, but if you're outside of state or outside of my areas in New York and Connecticut, I can refer you to another experienced realtor pretty much anywhere in the country. The buying process is like a train running on a track. It can go fast or slow, forward or backward, and even stalls once in a while. But eventually you arrive at your destination. No one transaction looks like the last. So let's go through it slowly so you know what to expect, even if I can't really prepare you for everything. Remember the Rottweiler and the alligator from earlier? Number 1, you have to decide that you're ready. Not kind of ready, but ready. Only you can determine that. The client example I gave a few moments ago is not how it happens for everyone. Number 2, develop a plan. This is where we build your dream team. We're going to make sure your lender has checked your credit, find out what they estimated the taxes to be, because this number can drastically change your purchase amount by tens of thousands based on geography and municipalities. A good lender will be able to tell you if there are basic steps you can take to improve your finances in order to put you in a more favorable position to get a mortgage approval. This is the process we call a pre-approval that we covered a little earlier. The letter will tell you the loan amount and the required deposit, which equal a total max purchase price. Your team will also consist of a home inspector and an attorney. In New York and Connecticut, your attorney will likely also choose your title company for you. You will also need home insurance. Some people wait until they've already made an offer to shop for home insurance, but it's helpful to have someone in mind that at the start. When you involve your insurance rep early, they can let you know if your dream home is in a flood zone before you fall in love, because the additional cost of flood insurance might actually bump it out of your price range. Part of your plan should include making a list. Decide what are the most important things you want in your next home while remembering the things you do not want to repeat from your last home. What are your must-haves versus it would be nice to haves? Just a few things. You don't want to make your list so comprehensive that your home now only exists in your dreams and not in the real world. For example, paint colors and functions of a room can change, but the location of the house cannot. Also, what is your timeline? That can determine how aggressively we are pursuing properties. Number 3, check out homes in your preferred location, and when you find the right one, because you've done the previous 2 steps, you'll be ready to make an offer whenever you find it. This is important in a really competitive market like the one we had in 2020 and are still experiencing to some degree. Number 4, your offer is accepted and we enter into what we call the contingency or due diligence period. During this time, we're paying close attention to the dates listed in your contract or offer and moving to get things done in a timely manner so that your deposit or down payment are not put at risk. This is when your attorney will write or review contracts, depending on what state you're in. You will give a deposit, which can be a portion or all of your down payment. You can do your home inspection if you choose to do one, and you'll submit your mortgage application. These are all considered contingencies. All of these things happen at what can feel like lightning speed, but remember, you already have your team in place. The next step is to get your loan approved. What you want to get is a commitment from the bank to give you this money. During this time, make no sudden movements that could affect your credit, your loan, or cause you to lose your deposit. Skip buying the big, expensive new furniture pieces you've been eyeing. Don't quit your job or plan a lavish, well-deserved vacation before speaking with your realtor or your lender. Most likely, we are going to advise against it. Or it might actually be okay, but let us know first so we can tell you if it will affect the status and viability of your home purchase. The worst thing is to get to the end and find out you can't close for a reason that could have easily been avoided. Number 6, prepare to close. The bank is going to ask you for the same paperwork over and over and over again. This is normal. They will verify and ask you to update many of your documents. It can be annoying, frustrating, and maybe even a little stressful, but as long as you're organized and you know what's coming, you'll be able to get whatever they're requesting submitted quickly without holding up your process or missing any contract dates. We're trying to get you that coveted notification from the bank that says your file is clear to close. Your final hurdle is closing day. This date is set by the bank and the buyer and seller attorneys. It may be different from what is on your contract. It's not a done deal until you get those keys. The bank will do their final income and employment verifications, likely the day before closing. Bring your license or photo ID and a check for your closing costs. Closing costs are not included in your loan and can actually be anywhere from 2 to 5% additional cash out of pocket. But ask me how you may be able to avoid coming to the table with that cash. Let's also talk about the cost of home ownership, because big dreams don't come cheap. And home ownership is grown-up behavior. In addition to ongoing expenses that you'll already factor in when deciding what monthly mortgage payment you're comfortable with, because you know you'll be responsible for them, is like your utility bills, maintenance and repairs, maybe trash service if you live on a private road or in a complex, your cable, your internet, etc. There are also costs related to purchasing a house that are not included in your down payment and mortgage. These are your upfront costs and your closing costs. Your home inspection, your attorney fees, and you want to have that conversation with your attorney early. Bank associated fees, which include your appraisal, which lets the bank know if the house you're buying is actually worth what you've contracted to pay for it. Sometimes these two numbers do not match. If the appraisal amount is lower than the contract amount, that could mean several things, including going back to the table and renegotiating, coming up with more cash out of pocket, or possibly requesting your deposit back if you and the seller cannot agree, and then starting over with your search. The bank may charge underwriting fees, title insurance, and recording fees, as well as processing fees. Property taxes and seller reimbursements. Depending on what time of year it is, the property taxes may have been paid beyond the date of closing. You are responsible for paying back the seller for the time they will no longer live there. Another example is if there's oil in the oil tank, you may pay them back for that amount at fair market price as well. Your lender can give you a summary of these costs in advance of the closing, but most of the time you won't know the exact amount of the check you need to bring to closing or the wire until just a couple of days before. And then you sign on the dotted line, several of them. There will be a lot of places to sign. And congratulations, you bought yourself a home. Easy, right? Maybe not so easy by yourself, but your team will be solid. I recently got such a thoughtful review from a couple who I assisted to navigate their purchase a few months ago. I liaisoned with their lender and their attorney through the whole process. There were a few unexpected surprises, of course, but we were able to handle all of them because all of us were in consistent communication with each other. They had a situation where there was supposed to be a buried oil tank excavation that almost derailed the entire purchase. Their home inspector flagged what looked to be evidence of a buried oil tank, but the seller said they'd always had gas for the 25 years they'd lived there. The buyer attorney and I worked together to try to get to the bottom of this. If there was an oil tank, we needed to make sure that it was abandoned properly. An oil tank excavation and remediation of a spill can cost tens of thousands to fix properly. It's a frustrating and costly process that we didn't want them to be responsible for after they owned the house. After several calls and some tough negotiations with the sellers and their agent, the seller's home insurance company, the fire marshal, the gas company, and an oil tank removal company, we were set to dig up the oil tank that we were sure was down there. The metal detector was telling us there was definitely something in the ground about the size of an oil tank right where one would be located. So days before the closing, everyone gathered for the dig, prepared to test the soil for any leaks in the tank that was probably there since the mid-1900s. They dug into the ground to find a huge wheel from a carriage buried in the lawn somehow, who knows when. Although gratefully it was not an abandoned oil tank, we were prepared to handle it together. All of the other times in my career that I've met this situation, it was an oil tank. Whew, okay, so that was the big one. And I know we covered a lot. How are you feeling? Are you ready to do this? The most important thing to remember is that you are not alone in this process. Your realtor will be there every step of the way. If I can say it even more simply, the home buying process requires that you decide you're ready to do this and get representation, develop a plan, including your pre-approval letter, search for a house and make an offer, negotiating if necessary. Then your offer is accepted and final approvals get underway. You prepare to close with required inspections and documentation. Finally, sign all of the paperwork to make it official and bring the rest of your down payment and your closing costs check to closing. The bank will bring their portion. I can't stress this enough. Make no sudden changes once your offer is accepted. Seriously, check with the mortgage broker before you spend more than $100. Once you put in your offer, you don't want anything related to your financial situation to change. Despite what we've covered today, there's a lot more to the home buying process, especially because each transaction is different from another. But there you have it, what I consider the three main components to the home buying process: your credit, financing, and the home buying milestones to actually get the keys. Again, I know that was a lot and you probably have questions. If you've made it this far, thank you for hanging in there with me. We are almost at the end. I'm going to pause now to answer questions if there are any written in the chat. If you don't have any questions just yet, feel free to leave them in the comment section and I will review and answer them when the live is finished. So does anyone have any questions? I see one that says, I thought a home inspection was required. Why would one choose not to inspect their home prior to purchasing it? So it's not required. A home inspection is totally up to you, the buyer. Sometimes people waive the home inspection as a tool to make their offer a little bit stronger to the sellers who might not want the hassle of having to fix whatever comes up, or if you do your inspection and find something that needs to be disclosed in their next transaction, they want to avoid that hassle. And sometimes if it's like a new build or it just seems in immaculate condition and you're prepared to deal with whatever comes up, you do not have to do an inspection. That's your choice. I see one that says, what happens if the house appraises under the offer price? So the bank is only going to give you money to cover what the house is worth. They're protecting their own interests. So if the appraisal comes in lower than your contract price, you normally have a clause in your contract that allows you to renegotiate the price or at least have a conversation with the sellers. If the sellers, a lot of times the sellers will choose to come down to the appraisal price and you just change the price in your contract and in your mortgage application. But if they are firm on the price that they want for their house, sometimes they'll ask you to split the difference between the contract price and the appraisal price, or they'll just ask you to come up with the cash to make that difference. It might be just a couple of thousands, but sometimes it could be 20 or 30,000. So you might decide that you want to ask for your deposit back and just move on and continue your search. I don't have an appointment setter, but you can make a comment in the comment section, and I will reach out to you, and we can set a time to talk. Okay, so I'm going to keep going because I want to be mindful of your time. But if you have any other questions, just leave them in the comment, and I will go through the comments after the live is finished and answer any comments that I missed. So let's keep going. There's more to know, of course, especially when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I want to be mindful of your time. I promise we could do this within your lunch break. Let me leave you with these final points about why you need an agent. In our part of the Northeast, generally, when we're talking about buying a home, we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, even for a one-bedroom co-op apartment in New York. I can't stress enough that you want to make sure you have the right people in your corner working for your best interests. What I haven't covered so far is why, as a buyer, you need your own realtor. You can go on Zillow or Realtor.com and look for your own home yourself, right? But do you know that agent who is advertising that home already has fiduciary duties to their client, the seller? When they pick up the phone and agree to show you that house you're calling about, their job is to get their client, who isn't you, the best price possible. That usually means the highest. Sure, they could agree to represent you as well, but then they've become a dual agent. There are fiduciary duties, namely loyalty, that they can no longer provide for you or the seller. What's that saying about serving two masters? They cannot even advise you on what you should offer because their client is also the seller. Your own agent would run the comps in the neighborhood and tell you of a similar house at the end of the block sold 3 months ago for $70,000 less with better upgrades and more bathrooms. Your realtor also streamlines the process for you. They're the co-captain of that team you built. I can look at the house you fell in love with online and, based on my experience and listing information, tell you whether or not it fits within the parameters and goals you laid out on your wish list. I'll also be able to advise you on the numbers, considering taxes and other fees, whether or not it's on budget, saving you time, energy, and disappointment. But I know you've heard that before, and if you're here, you're into facts and not empty promises. And in a moment, I'll let my reviews speak for themselves. But isn't it time you stop researching? Time instead that you link up with someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to buying a home and can answer your questions. Why search the internet for answers and instructions that I already have and am willing to give? And if you're wondering whether or not you can afford to pay me for all of my expertise, as a buyer, having your own realtor almost always costs you nothing extra. So you can take what I gave you and put it into action. You can search a major database and connect with the first agent that pops up. They will definitely show you the house they're advertising online for their client, for whom they are trying to get the highest price possible. But don't forget to ask yourself, whose best interests are they representing and who will be working to get you the fairest price? Doing it that way may be what you've been doing for the past several months, or how your friend or cousin lucked out when they were buying. It could work. But option B is you can let me help you. We can lock arms and I'll help you build a dream team that's going to find you your happy place. If not now, then when? Wouldn't it be great if this time next year you were watching the latest Instagram challenge from your favorite spot in your new home? Schedule a buyer consultation with me. Let's see if we could be a good working fit. Reach out, even if you're not in my market areas. I'll help you figure out if now is your time, and we will start to build your dream team. And about those reviews, these clients were first-time buyers that really put their trust in me through the entire process. We worked so well together and they were so much fun. I know they truly love the house they bought. It's been fantastic to see their social media posts about their design choices and how their family is really making their house into a home. And these clients went through the process of moving from New York City to Connecticut during the height of the pandemic. They weren't always able to make the trip out of the city, so sometimes we had to get creative. We did several FaceTime showings where I walked them through homes they were interested in. They definitely had a lot of faith in my skills. And if I remember correctly, the first time they saw their house in person was for the final walkthrough, and they were not disappointed. Be sure to take action now while other folks keep thinking about it and researching it. You'll want to have your plan in place so that when your dream home pops up on the market, you're ready to seize the opportunity. Thank you so much for joining this webinar and carving out time in your day to spend with me. I know you've watched a lot of these online events in the last few months, so I hope that you learned something new here or something became a little more clear. I hope you feel that this was time well spent. If you have any questions about the home buying process, please don't hesitate to contact me. Call me at 914-843-5318 or email me at tiffanymfrench@gmail.com or tiffanymfrench@bhhsne.com. I can't wait to meet you or reconnect and help you make your dreams come true. Thank you.